first parade in San Antonio. He has been having lunch at Assumption Seminary with the Texas bishops. He hopefully worked in a nap or at least some rest in order to refresh himself after the Mass. You can see that it took a lot out of a lot of people. And the Pontiff was up there at the altar site, exposed to the sun along with everyone else, so we hope he is refreshed. Kathy Teague is standing by at the Chancery where the seminary is located. We see a trolley being readied. I believe that is what the bishops will be riding in, and the Pope will be in his Popemobile. Kathy, any sign of him yet?
No sign of him yet, Deborah. The people are ready, the bishops are ready, the police are ready. Everyone is ready for the Pope to emerge from Assumption Seminary after having about an hour and 15-minute rest period and begin the 4.5-mile parade on to downtown San Antonio. So far, we have seen no sign of him. The security people are all ready and in anticipation. As I said, the crowds have been building here over the past hour. There are 5 and 6 people deep along the parade route. From what we understand, many of those people have been standing out in this hot sun. From what I understand, the heat index is over 100 degrees right now, waiting to see what will probably be only a few seconds, just a glimpse of the Pope as he drives by in that famous Popemobile. We are still looking to see some sort of sight behind us. So far, we're seeing nothing, a little bit more activity as far as the security goes. The flashing of police lights, the motorcade revving up its engines. Yet so far, no sign of the Pope. So far, he's been on time for all the other appearances today. He made the arrival on schedule at Kelly Air Force Base. The Mass, he arrived there on time, even with a few brief stops to talk to some of the people that were there. Okay, from what I can understand, we do see the Pope right now. He is getting into the Popemobile. He will be going along the Popemobile with Archbishop Patrick Flores. The Archbishop will be talking to the Pope along the route, explaining some of those different displays from the different parishes that have been set up along the Woodlawn Lake area. All right, back to you now, Bob and Deborah.
Thank you, Kathy. As you can see, if we can get back to the Pope here for a minute, I think that's the most important shot. The Pope and Archbishop Flores, the chief host for this visit, in the Popemobile as they begin what is a 4.5-mile parade from Assumption Seminary to downtown, to the Municipal Auditorium. 4.5 miles. They'll be traveling at about 9 miles an hour. The trip ought to take them, a half an hour or so. The parade route goes as such. They leave Assumption Seminary, which they are doing right now, and they travel east on Woodlawn to Germania, and then they travel south on Germania, turning left onto Cincinnati, Cincinnati to Fredericksburg, Fredericksburg to Cypress, Cypress to Maine, Maine to Lexington, and Lexington on to the Municipal Auditorium, where the Pope will watch a 10-minute film presentation at the Catholic Charities convention there, and then deliver an address as well to the 4,500 members who are at the convention. There we see the trolley car, which will have the bishops and the other members of the Vatican staff and the papal entourage. Aligning the parade route, Deborah, all sorts of different exhibits put together by the various parishes here in the Archdiocese and specifically in San Antonio.
And now we're going up to Sky 12 to get a look from the sky at the parade route as the Pope pulls out onto the street. The crowds have been waiting there now for a couple of hours in many cases, lining the streets. What good fortune for the folks in the Woodlawn Lake neighborhood. They just had to walk out to their front yards, to their curb, to get a glimpse of Pope and a glimpse of history in San Antonio. The famous Popemobile now rolling through the streets of San Antonio. We understand that this is the same Popemobile that was in Columbia, South Carolina. There are 2 Popemobiles traveling with the Pope. They actually leapfrog them, so to speak, from city to city, so that there is one in advance for him as he arrives from each city. The one that was in New Orleans that he used there will be flown to Phoenix, which is his next stop after here. Something interesting, too, about how well organized this trip is. When the Pope began the parade, it was about 7 minutes after 4, according to our clock, and the parade was supposed to start at 4 o'clock. He is running just a few minutes behind schedule, which is absolutely amazing when you consider the size of this production. The entire visit of John Paul to San Antonio. Every minute is orchestrated. The entire trip is carefully choreographed. Seeing here now people lining the streets. We don't know if they know that the parade has begun. but John Paul is not far from them at all.
This is a little bit farther down the parade route, a shot from our affiliate in Corpus Christi, KIII, and you can see the crowd here is quite good. Deborah indicated that some of these individuals need only step out in their front yards and the Pope drives by. Certainly there's a convenience factor, but there's also been a factor of upsetting the community life there in that neighborhood, because the entire parade route has been cordoned off for the last 24 or 48 hours, and a lot of these people have been confined to their homes, have had no access to get in and out of their residences. They had the choice to either leave for the weekend or just to stay where they were with some TV dinners and the television and the radio or whatnot.
Hopefully the famous charm of John Paul II will win them over, and the inconvenience will have been worth it to see him parading through the streets. First time a Pope has ever come to Texas. A very historic moment here as he goes through the streets.
This is the longest parade, by the way, of his U.S. tour here in 1987. All the other parades are just a matter of a couple of miles. This is 4.5 miles and will take about a half an hour. The Popemobile that we've heard so much about is really a pretty interesting vehicle. It's a Mercedes-Benz that is outfitted, quite evidently, with quite a bit of glass. It is bulletproof glass called Lexigard, transparent even on the top. There's a bench seat in the back where the Pope and the Archbishop are now is room for 3. It's air-conditioned. The vehicle runs on benzene gasoline, and interestingly enough, if there were some mechanical problems with the Popemobile, there'd be a place to take care of it today. The service department at Benson Mercedes is remaining open this Sunday just in case there's a problem with the Popemobile.
And we hope that they are watching so they will know if they're going to be pressed into service today. At the end of the parade route is Municipal Auditorium. That is Pope John Paul II's destination. He will speak to the Catholic Charities Convention there, as we've told you. And John Kirby is standing by with a report from that site. John?
And especially because my little kids.
Well, obviously we've got John's picture, but we do not have his audio. John, if you can stand by while we get these technical problems worked out, we will definitely be back to you, because you are the terminal spot on this particular parade.
A little bit about this Pope who is attracting so much interest in San Antonio with his visit. He, as you probably have heard, is the first Polish Pope ever. He is the first non-Italian Pope in 450 years. And when he was elected in October of 1978, he was the youngest Pope in a century. And San Antonio has added to his reputation, or his claim, as the most traveled Pope ever. This trip is his 36th outside of Italy, and he has visited more than 60 countries while Pope. He's a prolific writer. He's written over 300 books and poems, plays, all kinds of writings, and he holds doctorates in ethics and theology. He's also a very athletically inclined person, especially as a younger man. He was a swimmer, a skier, possibly one of the first popes ever to be athletically inclined. This person who has attracted so much attention, so much love from the people of San Antonio this weekend is, as we said, headed to Municipal Auditorium. These are the police cars running ahead of the Popemobile, and at the end of the route is John Kirby and Municipal Auditorium. John, we're going to try you again.
You can hear me this time, Deborah, can you?
Yes, we can. Go right ahead.
All right, thank you very much. You know, I just want to add something to the papal athletic trivia you've been talking about so brilliantly all day. Did you know that the Pope was an outstanding soccer player in his younger days?
No, we didn't know that. We
Yes.
knew he liked to ski and swim.
Well, since I'm a soccer player, I just thought I'd throw that in. He was an avid soccer player in his younger days. We wanted to talk to you about the crowd here at the Municipal Auditorium grounds. Up until 15, 20 minutes ago, it was kind of sparse, to be real honest with you. But we can't talk about that anymore because it's really filled out. There are thousands of people lining 4th Avenue here and crammed into Avenue A, all awaiting the arrival of the Pope to the Catholic Charities Convention here on Avenue A and 4th Street. In fact, the Pope is not only going to get a large reception here, but an enthusiastic one. Here's some people who have been waiting 3, 4, 5 hours for him to get here. What are you going to say to him? I mean, you're going to all give him a very enthusiastic welcome, aren't you? Yeah. I don't know, Bob and Deborah, if the Pope will receive any more of an enthusiastic welcome anywhere on his trip than he's going to receive right here at Municipal Auditorium. The Catholic Charities people are really looking forward to seeing him.
I'm sure he is looking forward to seeing them. Pope is now going by Woodlawn Lake.
He's at Woodlawn Lake, and I thank you all very much.
Thank you, John. Trying to get rid of John's audio there. Woodlawn Lake on the west side, heading on into the downtown area. It's interesting, his 1979 tour focused mainly in the affluent, organized political white majority areas. You may recall he visited Boston and Philadelphia and New York and Des Moines and Chicago and Washington. In 1987, the focus of the trip in geographical terms and also in cultural and ethnic terms is quite a bit different. The 87 trip visits the poorer, less political, brown, black, yellow minority in the South and the Southwest and the West. The trip ostensibly to show support for the less vocal, less well-celebrated, less reported underside of the Catholic Church, which is really an interesting statement on the Catholic Church as a whole when 40% by some counts of the Catholic Church is Hispanic, and that is considered to be a less reported underside of the Church. But it's one of the reasons why the Pope is here in San Antonio, to show that in fact Hispanics are important to the Catholic Church, that they are central to the Church. And when we speak about the Church, we speak not of a building, but of a community of people sharing a faith.
And there over that historic street sign, Josephine Tobin, it has been covered with a greeting to John Paul II, and you cannot see it from here, of course, but on that huge banner under which he has just passed are the signatures of many, many people in the neighborhood and in many of the parishes. They wanted to personally greet him, and even though he cannot read their names, of course, at that distance, they know that he passed under the banner which they had signed, welcoming him to their neighborhood and to the city, welcoming him for all of us, really. Bob, you were talking about the emphasis on geography, on Hispanics here. The Pope went so far as to really signal out Hispanics in his homily today at the Mass, which we heard earlier. So it is no accident that this part of the country was chosen for the trip. It's very specifically chosen to be a backdrop for certain messages John Paul has for certain people. And he has already made a statement today to Hispanics, Catholic Hispanics, and we will hear from him again tonight at Guadalupe Plaza when he will speak in Spanish. The folks along the parade route waving. It is 95 degrees, we are told. That explains all the umbrellas that you see. People are trying to keep cool, like many of the people at the Mass tried to do today, but the heat was just a little bit too much for some of them.
Mike Davis is with us. He is the Director of News and Information of the Oblate School of Theology, and he has been involved with, among other things, Catholic Charities, and also knows a little bit about what this parade is about. And some of the things the Pope is looking at here as he continues his procession downtown are exhibits set up by the various parishes. In round numbers, do you know how many exhibits there are and what the purpose of them is?
Well, what the exhibits are about is the different kind of community work that goes on in an individual parish. And what the Archdiocese wanted to do is to kind of tell the Pope that the individual parishes are extremely active groups, that there's a lot of activity going on. It's just not just a singular Sunday liturgy that makes it happen, but just a whole range of activities. So they'll have like this Catholic Youth Organization with a CYO, which is all the sports programs, the different outreaches they do to the youth in the Archdiocese. There'll be the CCD, the Confraternity of Christian Doctrine, the religious education program that goes on at a parish. When, since there's not as many, Catholic schools like back in the 50s and early 60s and the 40s, many Catholic kids, and a majority of them in this Archdiocese, go to the public schools. So we have to have religious education to, pass on the rich tradition of our faith. So we have that going on at the parish level, so he'll see an example of that. He'll have, small kind of group choirs going on. He'll have the work that the people are doing with the elderly in the Archdiocese. It's one of the things that in our city is, it's like he'll see in Phoenix, is that we're in Miami, a lot of retired people are here, so they have unique problems and concerns, but in the church and the Archdiocese is trying to reach out to them. So he'll see a varied amount of activities going on, which I hope, I think it's kind of, y'all had talked about it earlier, it's kind of too bad that he can't stop the motorcade himself, because he's done that in the past and the Secret Service won't allow him, because I know once he sees what those people are doing at Crockett Park and Madison Square Park, that probably like to stop and go out and thank them.
Is the Archbishop explaining to him what he's seeing? Will these people know at least that the Pope has been made aware of their exhibits?
Oh, I'm sure he is. He's been kind of orientated to look out for these different groups. And I know just in my parish, which is Holy Spirit, one of the ladies of the parish has been working on kind of the children's programs that are going on, and she has a whole group of kids out at Crockett Park is going to be putting on a display. So we're talking about like the Knights of Columbus, these different organizations that just make up the community aspects of our Catholic faith.
How many displays are there in this 4.5-mile route?
Good question. I think there's about 15 to 20. I really can't give you an exact answer. I'm sorry.
Can the Pope actually see them? I notice there are so many people, sometimes 8 and 10 deep on the roadside, that I wonder if he can see.
Well, they're not going to be right on the street level. They're happening in the park. So like when he comes down past 5 Points and crosses San Pedro to Cypress, we'll come up to Crockett Park, and there'll be a display of those there, so people can gather around in the park atmosphere. And then there'll be another one probably at Madison Square when he comes down Lexington Avenue.
He's on Cincinnati right now, we are told.
So he's coming up to old St. Anne's Parish there. So I mean, it's a huge, multicultural neighborhood. And then, obviously from our vantage point, it's 3 or 4 deep in it, so they're just having a great time.
For folks who may just be joining the coverage of the Pope's visit to San Antonio, the yellow and white flags that you see and will continue to see throughout the day are the yellow and white flag of the Vatican, symbolizing the papacy, and it is the flag that is flying from the Popemobile. You'll see yellow caps, you'll see lots of yellow. And when he got off the plane today at Kelly Air Force Base, he was giving yellow roses, which symbolize, of course, Texas to us, but also shares the theme of the Vatican and the papacy.
You're talking about the heat problem out there. I just noticed the flatbed truck precedes the park. That's 30 journalists representing different aspects of the media who precede the Pope during the entire parade, and so they have to ride on the back of that flatbed. So I remember during the Grand Prix, the drivers complained about the bumpiness of the road. Well, these guys are going to see it firsthand and feel it firsthand on that truck.
Let's listen for a minute, because you can really get a sense for the intensity of the reaction of the crowd here as the Pope drives by.
We understand the Pope is on Fredericksburg Road right now, just to orient you a bit.
And this is just the epitome of why the Pope travels. It is a matter of awareness. He is trying to bring people an awareness of faith. And how better to do it than to focus the attentions of all these people and all the television cameras, consequently being watched by millions of people all over the world. That's why he travels so much.
We're going to take a look at the map of the parade route that the Pope is currently on. We were at the trailing end of his parade group there, so until we can get another shot of him from the beginning, we'll let you see. And he is on Fredericksburg right now, heading towards Cypress. So now that we've seen that, hopefully we can get another shot of the Popemobile rather than the police cars following up behind the Pope. But his destination, as we said, is Municipal Auditorium. He has a ways to go yet through downtown, some parks to pass, and some exhibits to see that people have been working on for many weeks, preparing for him. This is a stretch of the parade route that has yet to see the Pope. They are waiting in anticipation. Perhaps they can hear the cheers up the road and know that he is on the way. This is one of those parades that is very nice because it is not terribly long. There are not lots of floats. There is really one thing to see. And all of the people we have talked to say it is worth waiting just to get a glimpse of him, and as we said all day today, have a place in history, be a part of history.
It certainly is that already. We've been speaking during the earlier part of the day about Hispanics in the Catholic Church and how in greater numbers they are defecting from the Catholic Church to other Protestant faiths. By some accounts, as many as 25% of them here in San Antonio have already converted to other faiths. And that is because of a perception in large part that the Hispanics are not being well served by the Catholic Church. They believe in the Catholic God, but they sometimes wonder if the Church in Rome cares for them and thinks about them as much as they think about the Church. And this is a huge statement as far as the Catholics in San Antonio and the Hispanics in San Antonio, that the Catholic Church does hold it very dear, in fact, and close to the central organization of the Church. The fact that the Pope would come to Texas and San Antonio.
And also, as Father David Garcia said, he, in making this trip and in speaking Spanish so often while here, says to the Hispanic Catholics, we accept you as you are, with your customs, with your traditions, and with your language. You don't have to make apologies. That is the message many, many Hispanics here are getting from this visit. And as you heard just a moment ago, returning to the parade, we hear what sounds like church bells, and we can only assume that that is a greeting, a musical greeting to John Paul II. Along with the cheers, we're hearing church bells in downtown San Antonio.
That truck, if I'm not too irreverent in saying, with all the journalists now coming onto the screen, looks a little bit like a truck maybe carrying farm laborers out in the country or something like that. They are just jammed on that truck.
Those are migrant reporters coming to town.
I think they're serving penance of some sort.
Some sort. I mean, y'all talked earlier about the mass reconciliation. Well, they'll probably make it up for some past sins by having to ride on the back of that truck.
And undoubtedly, there are some past sins to be made up among that group.
There are 3,000 journalists who are credentialed for this particular visit to San Antonio. I indicated earlier in the morning, 14 or 15,000 are credentialed in the entire country for the papal visit. So we have our share of journalists in town today from all manner of different publications and media outlets.
Mike, we've been talking today about the Pope's charm, and I think as we have watched him this week in the other cities in Miami, New Orleans, and Columbia, we have all seen things about him that really captured something in our hearts, perhaps, and won us over in a way. He certainly is a man with charisma. Is there anything that you have heard about from other people in your parish, or that you yourself have witnessed or heard of, that has been an example of the type of charisma he is said to possess?
Well, I think he does have that charisma, and I think the reason it's being is I think it comes from his background in Poland, that he realized as one of the leaders of the Polish church that he had to be up front with the people, that he had to communicate with them constantly if they were going to get their message across to them of that everybody had their identity, everybody has liberty, and we have to put up a solid front to the political situation.
I want to interrupt just briefly for a minute, Mike, because Angela Beerville is at Cypress in Maine live as His Holiness comes right by. Angela?
Baba, the Pope is just turning the corner of Cypress in Maine, and obviously this crowd, which has been gathering now for 2 hours, is very excited. Very hot out here. You can see a lot of umbrellas, but certainly worth the wait. There are people here. I've spoken to people from Cincinnati, Ohio, people from Dallas. Most of these people, though, I would say the majority that I have spoken to are from this area, from San Antonio. Many I spoke to said they did not go to the Mass because they expected it to be too hot and too crowded, but then several also said that they might have gone to the Mass after watching it on television, seeing that it wasn't as crowded as they had expected.
Did you get the impression, Angela, that the TV and all the prior coverage of this event had scared people away from the Mass?
I somehow think so. From the people that I've spoken to here, and I've been sitting here with them for 2 hours watching the crowd grow, and they have said that several of them would have gone to the papal Mass had they thought that it would not have been as crowded as we had been predicting, or others had been predicting.
Mike, what is the church's position on that? Are you all glad that the crowd was not as huge and not as difficult to handle, or was that part of the strategy, to keep the crowd down, perhaps be a little pessimistic, a little concern expressed prior to the Mass?
I think one of the things that happened, I think on the Mass itself, it may have been a little bit kind of almost a media overkill. I mean, it was a, this is a historic event, and it's obviously the biggest turnout in this city in many, many years, or probably in our history. And so it took on this kind of grandiose aspect. And I know I've talked to people, and that concerned them, the size of the crowd, the heat out there, and just maybe the transportation problems getting out there, and it kind of turned them off from going off. But fortunately, as the Holy Father understands, people communicate now internationally through television and radio and the press, and even more through television. And so, as you say, there was 300,000 people at that Mass, but there may have been 3 million people in this state that watched that Mass. So, he's a lot like our president. He's a great communicator. He understands how to reach out to people and the means that it takes to do it.
There were some great moments at that Mass this afternoon. One moment that really touched me was when the 14 children, the orphans from San Antonio, brought gifts to him, flowers and the sacraments. It was just a beautiful moment, the way he handled those children and how in awe those children were of the Pontiff. And then there was that moment when he bent down to an elderly lady and touched her, and you could just see her vibrate with joy and excitement.
Well, I'm sure another great story is one of the men who was 92 years old, was selected to receive communion, and his family are very upset. They say, you know, you're going to die out there. You know, the heat. I mean, you're 92, and he says, I'm going out there to receive communion, and if I die out there, you know, what a way to go. You know, I said, well, yeah, you'd have made the front page of the paper, too. But
what was that story we saw in the Associated Press, Deborah, about the lady who was on the guy's shoulders? Tell me that one.
A woman said that she stood on her husband's shoulders for 20 minutes in order to get pictures of the Pontiff as he was passing through the crowd at the Mass site. And she said, I got my picture, but I think my husband's going to collapse.
That guy probably converted to another faith just because of the physical.
You may have lost one there,
right
Mike.
there.
Nobody ever said it was going to be easy being a Catholic, I guess.
The Pope rounds another corner now in downtown San Antonio. You can hear the cheers. We heard more church bells just a moment ago.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think he just went on to Main Street there, did he?
This is St. Mary's Street.
St. Mary's.
Mm-hmm.
Way ahead of me.
We're going to just let you listen in to the crowds as they greet John Paul II. We're going to go to John Kirby now, who is at Municipal Auditorium. John?
Well, Deborah, he is just about arriving here at Municipal Auditorium, and he is going to receive a very, very warm welcome when he crosses the bridge over in front of the auditorium. There's the Popemobile now, and some people over here on Avenue A, the extension of Lexington, would be a little disappointed. They were told that he'd be coming in front of them as he came into Municipal Auditorium, but the Secret Service apparently chose to take him another route. So there will be some disappointed people here, but no less enthusiastic. We've been talking to these people all day. Some of them have got here as early as 9, 10 o'clock this morning to stake out a great location to see him. So when he leaves along here on 4th Street, when he leaves Municipal Auditorium, most of them will move down, and they will get a very good glimpse of the Pope and the Popemobile. The Pope will be inside for roughly an hour and 15 minutes inside the Municipal Auditorium. He'll be listening and talking to the Catholic Charities Convention. In talking to several leaders of the Catholic Charities earlier today, they told me that they expect his speech to focus on two themes. One, they expect to be thanked for the work they've done for Catholic Charities, but two, they expect to be asked to dig a little deeper and do a little bit more for Catholic Charities. So we'll have to wait and see if that indeed is what the Pope says to the Catholic Charities Convention here at Municipal Auditorium. He'll be going in a side door, and then he will be coming out this east portico of the Municipal Auditorium, and then he will be coming down 4th Street and going down across in front of the Alamo, and then down, of course, to San Fernando Cathedral. So his speech, he's going to go in and listen to a little bit about the Catholic Charities first, and then he will make his speech and come out. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on what he has to say. Bob and Deborah?
Okay, John Kirby, thank you. It appears the Pope has arrived at Municipal Auditorium. We don't see the Popemobile in sight. We can't say that for certain, though. But there is the recently renovated, rebuilt Municipal Auditorium, a historic landmark in San Antonio, now making more history by hosting Pope John Paul II. The Municipal Auditorium, a little background on it, burned down in 1979.
Yeah.
And